How's it going, producer? Thales here for a quick tip on music composition and music production that's especially good for beginners or people who don't play many instruments. Today's video is all about having a faster workflow if you make your music on a digital audio workstation. I'll tell you why I always write my songs in the key of C major and then I transpose them in my music production software of choice, Ableton Live. By the way, in the last video I showed a couple of ways of transposing MIDI in Ableton Live, and I'll link that video in the card and description below. So here's what I believe. When you're making melodies and harmonies and all that good stuff, and being creative with musical notes, you're usually working within a certain scale, within a certain key, unless it's some kind of atonal or experimental kind of music. But in most cases, especially in pop music production, there's a clear key to any song, right? Maybe you're making a song in the key of G major or E minor or C minor. And in my experience as a musician for more than 15 years, playing a bunch of different instruments, the most important thing to know when composing and producing melodies and harmonies is the relationship between the notes in the key you chose. And by that I mean the intervals and the scale degrees. What's the tonic? What's the supertonic? What's the dominant? I truly believe it's a lot more important to learn and understand scale degrees and refer to the musical notes in numbers instead of letters of the alphabet. I'll make sure to record a video on that subject in case someone who's watching is just beginning and isn't aware of these concepts in music theory yet. But in a simple way, understanding these relationships between notes and a scale is how you're able to pick the right notes to express the right feelings without too much trial and error. And I'm always talking about expressing feelings here because that's what I believe music is all about. And if you're making a melody or playing some chords in the key of C major, I think it's pretty easy for everyone to know which notes to use, since most people are making music with some kind of MIDI keyboard these days, and the scale of C major has only the wide keys, right? Of course, we can use notes outside of this scale too, but I think we can agree that most musicians and even non-musicians seem to be very familiar with the scale of C major. We have all the notes memorized. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. We're fluent in C major. Now, what if you're working in a key that's not as familiar to you? Let's say, for example, the key of A sharp major. Do you have the notes for that major scale memorized, or do you have to think for a second, making calculations of notes that go into each chord and think about intervals and stuff, for example? I know I don't have that memorized. I'm sure some musicians memorize all the scales in different keys, and that's wonderful, but I never did because we have tools now that allow us to focus on different things in music that will help us achieve our goals faster. That's why when I'm composing, I simply write everything in the key of C major and use the MIDI effect called pitch in Ableton Live to transpose it later. That way I don't spend extra time thinking about which note is the dominant in the key of A sharp major, for example. That time could be better spent developing my song ideas. I don't want to interrupt my workflow. I don't want to be making calculations and risk losing inspiration, right? Then once I'm done composing and before any instrument is recorded, I transpose it to whatever key works best for the person who's going to sing it, the key that actually fits the vocal range of the singer. And there's no loss in starting in a key then changing to another, even though I've seen some people claim that it changes the way you perceive the song because of the different resonant frequencies. So if you don't have all the scales memorized, and there are so many, then I believe this approach may help you produce your music more effectively. You only have to learn the scale degrees in one key, and the software does the job of transposing for you. C major is the most familiar key for me to compose on a MIDI keyboard. Maybe you're most familiar with another key because of an instrument you play, and that's totally fine. Whatever you're most comfortable with. Sound good? Alright then, that's it for today's video. I hope it's been helpful for you. If it was, please subscribe to the channel and like the video because it helps me a lot. I'm Thales, and I'll see you on the next episode.